What up? GGG has announced the return of Phrecia League on January 29th, and the community is super excited. So are we. Phrecia League is an alternate version of PoE with completely different ascendancies and no Atlas passive tree. It uses a totally different system for in-game juicing called idols that really scrambles the in-game bonuses up in a fun way. It kind of resembles PoE 2's tablets, but they're not consumable. And with the asynchronous trade in the Keepers of the Flame League's Genesis tree printing out tons of good gear, it's going to be an awesome time. Before we jump into it, help us out with that YouTube busy work, like, subscribe, and hype the video if you're on mobile. These all tell YouTube to show our content to more people, which helps us keep doing this. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Phrecia League. Alright, so first off, the question that we've been asked a bunch already is whether Toxic Rain was good last league, and we didn't even play it. That's how bad it was. There were just no ascendancies that were good for it, and that may change if they shuffle some things around. They do have a little bit in the way of changes planned. They haven't told us what they are yet, but go ahead and just expect for Toxic Rain to be bad enough to not be worth playing, and that's okay. We're probably going to play something else. We have a couple of ideas just to start off here. That's what this video is going to basically be about. So, when is Phrecia League starting? January 29th. It's starting at 1 p.m. PST, so a little bit later than the usual league start, and then it's ending 3 weeks later on February 19th. It's based on Keepers League, so the previous one was based on Settlers League, this one's now based on Keepers League, and, you know, it's standard, hardcore, solo self-found. It's not voided, so anything you do will be carried over into Keepers League, I guess, and then on into standard after a little while later. And also, as they have said here in bold, there have been some balance changes that will vary from the way that Phrecia worked before, and there'll be in patch notes prior to the event. Well, who knows when we'll get them, maybe the day of or whatever, but it's fine, right? If you didn't play in the original one, or even if you did and you've just forgotten, they did post them way back when, and they've linked to that in the post here, but we can also just look at them on the wiki, and that's kind of an easier way to do it too. Idols are coming back, of course, and we're not going to do too deep of a dive on idols. Basically, the way they work is they just contain like a lot of the bonuses that correspond to bonuses from the passive tree, but they're kind of shoved onto items that you socket into like this little inventory next to your map device, and then they just sit there. They're not consumable, but they're also not rollable, so they're quite different from tablets in PoE 2. Better, arguably, and they can do a lot of different things. You know, they can give you like very powerful, notable bonuses that you're only able to get like one of out of the tree, like re-rolling your rituals, for example. You can get like a bunch of that kind of bonus and re-roll your rituals like 9 times or something, just as an example. Now, they were kind of bad in the previous run of Phrecia League, primarily because asynchronous trade didn't exist. Now that it does, it's probably going to be pretty awesome. It kind of allows everybody to like hand make and custom make their own in-game farm strategy, and with asynchronous trade, removing that friction of waiting on other people to actually trade with you, it's going to be really, really good. Now, they've also mixed in a couple of things here. They've said specifically that they are going to add random map mods into the campaign, with the number of them scaling up with area level. They are going to remove modifiers from the pool that would brick builds, like Reflect. And then they're also adding some abilities onto campaign bosses and pinnacle bosses, just some new extra stuff. So it's not exactly the Gauntlet, but it's definitely not like vanilla PoE. This is sort of Gauntlet light, which is perfect, right? A standard, non-hardcore, trade-enabled Gauntlet experience is like almost exactly what we want, right? So this is perfect. And then, yeah, they're going to throw you like a couple of mystery boxes if you get to level 90. Cool. This isn't a private league or anything either, like it's available to everybody, so you can just play it on the day and for the 3 weeks that ensue afterward. Okay, so with that being said, we've gone back and looked at some of the old notes that we had. We did try looking on PoE Ninja, but unfortunately, even though PoE Ninja does a really good job of keeping like detailed records of all of the old league information, there have been so many different restarts and private leagues and stuff that have been kept here that Phrecia has fallen out of the list of tracked things on PoE Ninja. I tried a couple of variants, and yeah, they're all like, it's all gone, it's fine. Ultimately, we were able to just kind of get some basic information from some old notes and some like old Reddit posts and stuff, and we looked through the top 5 ascendancies, and we're going to kind of break those down a little bit, assuming that they don't get changed, because of course they did say some balance changes, but assuming that nothing gets changed or that it's relatively light, we have several ascendancies that we think look like real frontrunners, and then 2 that we're kind of looking to maybe do some like building around, depending on what exactly changes. So the first and most popular ascendancy by far in Phrecia League was Scavenger, which is based on the Scion, and that is kind of weird that Scion was actually viable. A lot of people wanted this to just straight up replace Ascendant, and that wouldn't really be too bad because it just had really, really powerful bonuses available to it. So one of the things that you were able to get was Cloak of Flame, 40% of his converted to fire, right? And then you could wear a Cloak of Flame. So now you're getting 80% of Fizz converted to fire. If you wore like a Dawnbreaker shield, you could bump that all the way up to 100% and just literally not take physical damage. Pretty insane. Now, as you can see, this is like kind of a weird layout. You have to take 2 points. The passives for this, just like a normal Ascendant, give skill points. So you get 2 points here, get skill points, and then your second Ascendancy is when you would actually get that Cloak of Flame bonus. And then you have to choose to either go like north or south at this point. And if you go north, you come up here and you're able to pretty much just take Obliteration or Void Battery. Those are both like really good options. If you were to go south, then you have some more like attack-based things. Things like the Starforge bonus or Soul Taker, you know, a couple of okay things, but generally speaking, Obliteration and Void Battery pretty much wound up being the go-tos. And then your final point option is over here on the right. You're basically able to get the unique bonus from a piece of jewelry, right? So this is a character that you're able to kind of slam together several different unique bonuses in place of any real Ascendancy bonuses, and then you can also wear those uniques and have them be like really good. Like the idea of wearing Void Battery and then also having 2 Void Batteries equipped, like having the Void Battery bonus along with 2 other Void Batteries is insane. Wearing Cloak of Flame and having the Cloak of Flame bonus again is insane. And then some of these things like Leadership's Price, getting that without having to actually wear Leadership's Price, pretty good. So people played this as a ton of different skills. It's obviously just generically very good. We also have the PoE 1 Path of Building pulled up here. And like just for very generic defense, you know, you can just come out through like a Sentinel, get like a bunch of base resistances very, very early on and very easily in a bunch of life. You know, in a jewel socket, like there's a lot of value in actually starting in the middle of the tree as a Scion. There's a lot of good bonuses around here, even though it's obviously not the most optimal place to start. The fact that you get a bunch of extra points to get out of here just makes it really good. So with Pyroclast Mine having gotten a pretty sizable buff in the last patch, like patch 3.27, a Pyroclast Mine starting Scavenger could absolutely work really well. The thing about the way that Scavenger works really is that you can literally just play any build. Poison Concoction of Bouncing and make your way over to the like bottom right side of the tree and get a bunch of poison related stuff. You could play a caster, you could play Power Siphon or Kinetic Blast or just pretty much any build with this Ascendancy and make it be really good. Now, those are some of the builds that were popular, not Pyroclast Mine, but Lightning Strike was also kind of popular with this and with the next Ascendancy that we'll talk about. That was nerfed. The skills that were actually popular back in Phrecia League were like Lightning Strike, Power Siphon, both of which were nerfed. Power Siphon was a mine build that was specifically nerfed for mines. Tectonic Slam of Cataclysm and Earth Shatter were both pretty popular, and those weren't nerfed. And then Flicker Strike and Righteous Fire, those haven't been nerfed, and they're obviously always popular. So let's take a look at the Blind Prophet. This was the second most popular Ascendancy, and it's going to be really obvious why. So you have to come out and take Sightless, but what this does is it makes you blind, but it gives you 12% as your base crit with weapons, which is crazy. It makes it insanely easy to scale up crit. You don't have to run a like high crit chance base weapon at all. You can just go purely into crit bonuses. And then another really nice thing about this Ascendancy too is all the small passives give you 10% crit multi. So you're getting like 40% crit multi out of this Ascendancy, as well as all these bonuses. And then you can take like Directionless and Careless. You basically get Nemesis bonus here without having to wear a Nemesis, without having to kill Uber Eater a bunch of times. And then Careless, get more projectiles. And then your final option, you kind of can go a couple of different ways, but Restless seems the most useful. You get like Explodey, basically. So you get like a ton of crit, Nimbus, a bunch of extra projectiles, Explodey, and no defensive bonuses at all, right? So this would be in place of like, it's a Shadow Ascendancy, so this would be in place of like Assassin or something, but it's somehow even less tanky than Assassin, which is completely crazy to be like literally zero defense at all. So this was really awesome for Lightning Strike. It could still be good for Lightning Strike. Lightning Strike isn't bad, but the lack of any sort of tankiness makes us a little scared to play this. The next most popular Ascendancy was Ancestral Commander, and this is the one that we're kind of leaning toward, depending on whether it gets nerfed or not, but the way that we're leaning here, just looking at this, is there are like 4 really, really good bonuses for a Slam build, and we're going to get into those right now. So Ancestral Endurance, plus 3 max endurance charges is just really good. This is part of why Tectonic Slam was so incredibly popular. If we look at Tectonic Slam of Cataclysm, we can see how that scales its damage, right? It gives you a bunch of damage, and a bunch more damage if you remove endurance charges, a bunch more area of effect and branching chance per endurance charge you remove. It's pretty easy to generate endurance charges if you're playing like a war crying build, and you just get so much damage. Like between the quality and the base, you get like 20% more damage per endurance charge. So if you're stacking endurance charges and generating them very easily, you're getting a massive more damage multiplier. And then you can use General's Cry to cast this and just make it very, very easy to just be like really blasting enemies. And then you can kind of use Cyclone for like your basic clearing and leeching and stuff in maps. So part of why this is able to work so well is this bonus right here, Call of the Ancestors. You get this reduced Warcry speed downside and 120% increased Warcry cooldown recovery rate. So this is a lot of a really not that easy to get stat, this cooldown recovery rate, like just to show off a character that we played in 325. This is our league starter. It was an Earthshatter Berserker, and it has tons of tattoos for Warcry cooldown recovery rate. Pretty expensive tattoo. And, you know, getting just 120% out of a notable is pretty amazing. So this would work really well also prior to getting that General's Cry setup going as just an Earthshatter build. So Earthshatter is a really powerful slam. You slam the ground, it spawns 6 spikes, and then when you Warcry, it blows up the spikes and they do a ton of damage. It's tuned around the fact that it is really annoying to use, right? But it's really, really easy to get around that because you can just use Auto Exertion, which will, if you reserve mana, like it'll reserve mana, and then it will just kind of cast Warcries passively. It's not doing it in my hideout because they didn't want this to be annoying in the hideout, basically. But you can hook up a bunch of Warcries that you don't really care about. Like, you can hook General's Cry up to it with no skill. It'll still cast it. Rallying Cry, Intimidating Cry, a bunch of other things. And you can also use this along with Battle Mage's Cry hooked up to a spell like Vulnerability, or if you're doing elemental damage like Flammability or LA Weak or something, to automatically curse enemies. So if I walk into, like, let's just go to an area let's go to the Blood Aqueducts, the classic. I'm just going to start automatically screaming as soon as I get here into Blood Aqueducts. You can see. I'm just yelling. I'm yelling like crazy. And a thing that you can do is like kind of stagger the quality on all of these so that they are yelling at different cooldowns. And that's exactly what we have going on here. I'm just yelling at a bunch of different cooldowns, and this would just be automatically detonating all these earth shatters. It'll be triggering all these different exerted attack buffs as well. And obviously this works really well on Berserker. In like the live version of the game, you know, you get a ton of damage out of that. But this can also work really, really well. It's just a way to do a bunch of damage on this Ancestral Commander as well. And then you have these like max endurance charges and this built-in Defiance of Destiny effect, 15% of max life or max unreserved life being restored before you get hit. It just makes you so hard to die. And then Toughened Skin, you know, like just kind of built in like action speed, lowering immunity, and also double armor is like pretty good, but there's some other options that you can play around with your final 2 points that we'll like talk about in a little bit. So then the next most popular ascendancy is the one that we played in the last Phrecia League, and that would be Whisperer. This is such a unique concept. It is a mana stacking attacker, and this is one of the ranger builds, and so the very first points you get right are Infinite Pursuit. You get max mana based on your dex, and then you can get We Know All, increased mana cost of skills, but your skills deal extra damage based on your max mana. There's some other stuff in here. Minimum Frenzy and Power Charges is also really good. It's your first 2 Ascendancy points, right? Just 4 Frenzy and Power Charges for the whole campaign. It's awesome. And then like additional forking, you can do a lot of different builds with this. You can do Kinetic Blast is definitely going to be very popular. We did Lightning Strike last Phrecia League, and that was awesome, but with that having been nerfed and Kinetic Blast being really good right now, this is probably going to be one of the most popular, right? There is more. Wait a little, also getting like Rage. Also very good, easy rage generation, but like flat added attack damage based on your max mana, built-in charges, you know, built-in forking. There's just so much damage in this. But as you can see, this is another ascendancy that is like very offensive, so you're gonna once again have to really build for defense. Also, nice little touch, this is the Whisperer, and all of the ability names are all written in lower caps, so you know. Then the final one is kind of a troll one, but it's also pretty good actually, and that's the Surfcaster. So like all the small passives for this are related to fishing, which isn't real, or is it? And then the bonuses that you get in the tree are Ghost of the Deep, probably the strongest 2 points in all of Phrecia League, 20% damage, 30% attack, cast, and move speed. At least in the campaign, this is going to be the strongest 2 points. or any ascendancy. Just insane. You'll take this and absolutely fly through the rest of the campaign. And then you have some bonuses like Stormy Seas. Your lightning damage is all converted to cold, but now it shocks. Glacial Wave, kind of giving you that Bin's Ring effect from Uber Elder, like chilling enemies, reducing their damage and increasing their damage taken. Super awesome. Then some other stuff like Reverse Chill from Changing Seasons is super, super good. But then the real star of the show here is if you're able to get your hands on a fishing rod, which is where those small passives actually do kind of come into play a little bit, you get 50% more cast speed, hilarious, and then you also get guaranteed crits with a fishing rod. So if you're able to get a fishing rod, which takes a little bit of work, this Surfcaster, which is a shadow, becomes completely insane, right? You're able to just build for pure crit multi, any sort of crit chance downside, it doesn't matter, you're guaranteed to crit, and you can just go pure crit multi, have absolutely outrageous damage, do like that, and then reverse chill, and all your lightning damage converted to cold, and do some sort of lightning damage spellcaster, and spark or stormbrand or something like that, and just do insane damage. But you do have to actually get a fishing rod, so it's like a little bit of work. Probably not the safest thing to start, but you know, if you're feeling creative, you can. So those were the 5 really, really good ascendancies going forward, and it really just seemed like Ancestral Commander kind of has like a very, very solid build concept around it, like being a slammer of some kind, and then Scavenger has basically the opposite. You can literally do whatever you want. Scavenger's just gonna be tanky. So if we look at some of the builds that have been really popular in, like, let's say day 3, right? We're on day 3 of Keeper's League. Things are a little different. There's like Kinetic Blast, Righteous Fire, Poisonous Concoction of Bouncing, Earth Shatter, and Reap. Reap and Corrupting Favor are all the same. Exsanguinate Mines is sort of a thing. There aren't really any great mine build options in Phrecia, at least that we noticed. Like, they weren't super popular. You can always just do Scavenger, right? Like, Scavenger works super great as anything, so it'll work as a miner too. But Kinetic Blast really seems like it's going to be good for like a Whisper or a Scavenger, depending on whether you want to go super offensive or super defensive. And obviously any sort of Earth Shatter build would be an Ancestral Commander that you would then probably switch over into like a General's Cry Tectonic Slam of Cataclysm. And that's kind of the direction that we're thinking of going. But there is one extra wrinkle here. So right now, Phrecia isn't in the 327 version of PoB. You can jump back to the 326 version. And the alternate here, and actually like look at these, and you know, you can see what the talent calculators look like there. But if you go back to 327, it's important to remember, we are playing in Keeper's League, so we have all the Bloodline Ascendancies. So there's tons and tons of power here in these Bloodline Ascendancies if you have one of these Phrecia Ascendancies that has like 3 good points, but then the last 2 are kind of bad. And so like on a build like a Scavenger build that's taking mostly Fizz taken as fire, you could get like 15% less fire damage taken on that by having a Zophgraft attached, and just give yourself like a massive, massive reduction to the amount of damage that you're taking overall just out of these 2 points here that could actually wind up being a lot stronger than the last 2 points in that Ascendancy. So there's a lot to play with here. Definitely there's going to be a lot of room for creativity in this event. It's kind of a shame that it's only going to run for like 3 weeks. Maybe they'll extend it a little bit, but yeah, this is looking like real fertile soil for just being really creative. Another thing that's kind of making us lean toward playing one of those slam-based builds, other than the fact that we just haven't played one in a really long time, is that there are some really good bonuses from some of the grafts that are in the Keeper's League, such as Seize the Flesh. You know, when you use a Warcry, this spawns Spires of Bone that erupt, and when you use an exerted attack, they explode. This is almost like reverse Earth Shatter, where, you know, this kind of works like perfectly in conjunction with each other. It seems like it's going to be really, really nice in conjunction with Earth Shatter to, you know, slam down the Earth Shatters, yell at them, and then, you know, have them spawn these spires that you then blow up by casting more Earth Shatters. Like, that seems pretty great. There's a lot of other really good stuff in here. You know, the main things that we played with during the league were just the Battering Olgraf, because Return to Dust did insane amounts of damage, and Replicating Eshgrafs because they just gave you move speed and gave you like free shock. So we could wind up just defaulting back to those again. They were a bunch of free damage, but some of the stuff that interacts with Warcries seems pretty cool. Some of the things like Heart of Flame just gave you a ton of damage reduction, so that was pretty good too. And ultimately, we're just kind of excited to get back into PoE 1 again. This looks like it's going to be pretty fun, actually. So that's kind of our plan as far as Phrecia League is going forward. Like, we're looking forward to that, and definitely going to be spending some time practicing Marauder start and maybe some Unascended Marauder campaign action, just to kind of get the feel of playing a slam build without like Berserker damage bonuses, and yeah, they're pretty fun, so this should be pretty good to get in there and mix it up with. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Phrecia League is coming in like a week and a half. Obviously, we're very excited. We'd love to hear what you guys are thinking about playing too. We'll definitely see what the patch notes reveal. Maybe things are going to get mixed up in a huge way. It's going to be a really fun time to like theorycraft about weird stuff that's only going to be around for like, you know, less than a month. Anyways, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us and help us make more PoE content, consider becoming a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.